Welcome everyone to this University of Illinois Extension's Illini Science Policy webinar program today. Want you all to know that all participants will receive a recording of today's webinar along with the slides and other resource links in a follow-up email after today's webinar. I also want you all to be aware that if you need closed captions, there is a button at the bottom of your screen that says show captions, and you are able to turn those on if you need any closed captions. I will also put that information in the chat for folks. Individuals can choose that, and so those are available from at the individual user side of these Zoom platforms now. There's also going to be a question and answer at the end of today's presentation. And so at any time during the webinar today, you can put your question or comment in, and we will curate those for the end while we have a discussion. Another just a brief note about the discussion today. We're not going to be answering official Illinois Office of Broadband questions, such as questions about the grant opportunities. And so if you are needing questions answered about that, we encourage you to contact broadband@illinois.gov for those questions. Our presenters, even though they worked with the Illinois Office of Broadband for the past year, they're not going to answer those direct questions pertaining to state programs. We really appreciate both of you being on today. Want to give a little bit of information about our presenters before they go on to explain to us what they feel is important for counties and communities in Illinois in doing meaningful engagement early on in the broadband development process and why that's so important. We have Alicia Ross on. She is an Illini Science Policy Scholar with us. We are so glad that she's been with us this past year. She came on having worked with our Education Policy Leadership and Organization Department in doing a concentration on global studies and learning design leadership at the University of Illinois, and has past experiences with organizations in Chicago doing technology trainings and consulting work around learning technologies. Really happy to have her working in our broadband space in Illinois. We also have Chukwuemezi Imujo. We call him Charles. He is with the Illinois Office of Broadband as well. We were lucky to have two fellows assigned to the Illinois Office of Broadband. Really goes to show that they really liked our fellowship program and took on two fellows this past year. He has a background in law, specifically intellectual property and technology, and cybersecurity as well. And he is a member of the International Association of Privacy Professionals, so he may give a little bit of experience or have some advisory types of skills on that privacy and cybersecurity topic as well. So we're really happy to have you on. Thank you so much, both of you, for all you've done this past year. There are many more things I could say about what you've been able to accomplish and how that lends to capacity building in Illinois among our public and private organizations working to render better access to our communities and counties. And so everyone is here today to hear you both. So I will go ahead and stop speaking. I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Alicia. I know that Matt Schmidt, the director of the Illinois Office of Broadband, is very grateful for both of your service this past year, and unfortunately could not be here to give remarks, but he is very happy and proud that for all you've done. And so I will go ahead and pass it to Alicia now. Thank you so much. Alicia, take it away.
Thank you so much, Nancy. We appreciate you as our Illinois Extension mentor for helping us and guiding us through this process. And we are grateful for Matt Schmidt, our director of the Office of Broadband, for having us as fellows, scholars with the team this year, including Adrian Pickett, Dr. Adrian Pickett, Shabika Argwal, and Robbie Macbeth, who have all worked with the extension in the past as well. So thank you so much. An overview of what we will be doing, what Charles and I will be speaking about this morning or this afternoon, is information on broadband and engagement using resources in Illinois, closing the digital divide in your county and community, digital equity inclusion processes, Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP, working with foreign-born or marginalized populations. And so the broadband internet and its types. Some of us are familiar with the types, but some of us may not be familiar with the extensive definitions. I won't go over the definitions in detail, but as you see here, we have defined what each of them are. And some of us may have used a few, and some of us just maybe one or two. So as you know, there's the DSL, the digital subscriber line, and then there's cable. Internet provided by cable television company. And we have the fixed wireless broadband services provided between towers and customers. And we have satellite broadband service provided by satellites orbiting the Earth, and mobile broadband. And then there was the proposed BPL, broadband over power lines, which was the idea that could plug your computer into any electrical outlet in your home and instantly have access to high-speed internet. But there, as you can see here, there have been complications with that aspect of broadband. But we wanted to put it here to show you what the different broadband internet accesses, as well as the different types that have been available. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. I'll take it on from here. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you so much, Nancy, for your mentorship so far. So in this slide, what we're looking at here is a slide showing the map of Illinois and really picturing the extent to which broadband connectivity has been adopted across Illinois. So when you look at the slide, you see, when you look at this map, you see that any place where you see blue indicates underserved locations, and wherever you see the orange color is the unserved and the green color is the served location. So all throughout Illinois, we have about 5% unserved locations and 28% underserved locations. So you see that when you look at it, you realize that a lot of work still needs to be done in Illinois for us to really close the digital divide and for us to really get broadband across the entire states. So generally, I sincerely and I strongly hold the view that broadband is a basic need. And from the basics and from our foundations on needs and the theories we learned while coming up in our schools about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're made to understand that the physiological needs are the most important needs of man: water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, no doubt about that. But when we look at it, the way life is currently structured, you cannot take away broadband. If Abraham Maslow is called upon today to reevaluate this hierarchy of need, I want to believe that he's going to definitely bring broadband into the physiological needs, because right now broadband drives everything. And up to the extent that even in 2020, UNESCO right now is still holding the view that broadband is a global basic need. In short, UNESCO is seeing it that broadband might be the answer to the world underdevelopment problems, right? So when you look at it, people, to get water, to pay your water bills, if you don't pay your water bills, your water will stop running. You need internet access. Even if you want to take on government benefits that provide some of these basic needs for you, you need internet access to sign up for it. Even if you don't sign up for it yourself, and you go maybe to the library or to some other locations where you sign up for it, the person who's going to attend to you, they still needs internet access. So you just cannot do away with broadband. So broadband at this point, we just cannot even stop talking about broadband. Even food production, right now we talk about precision agriculture, is being driven by high-speed internet, right? So broadband generally is a basic need, and I don't think at this point we should be even having an argument whether broadband should be a basic need or not. So this this table shows the extent to which we've had broadband adoption and the extent to which the digital divide has been closed so far in the state of Illinois. Generally, whenever the activities of the Illinois Office of Broadband and the Broadband Lab is being done, you always realize that the state is being divided into 10 economic development regions, which is basically the regions, the way the DCEO has done that. So it's divided across the 10 economic development regions. And when you look at this slide, you realize that the state is now 74.8% covered in area of broadband, with the southern region suffering the less percentage coverage for broadband, and the northeast region, that is the Cook County area, enjoying the highest broadband coverage. So when you also go further down to this to the table, you see the data on home and households without computer. So across the states, 5.3% of households do not have computer at home. And the southern region, again, have the higher percentage of households without computer at home. And the northeast region also have the least percentage of households without computer at home. So you see that there's still a lot of work to do in the area of broadband expansion and digital inclusion, particularly trying to get computers and other technology devices to some of these houses that do not have them. So why throughout this webinar, what we should have in mind while looking at the data we're going to share as to served, unserved locations, and the activities that we've done so far with the activities that the Office of Broadband and the Broadband Lab has done so far, we should also thinking around in the line of how we get involved with the Broadband Ready program to make it successful and to make it more impactful, to make it much more impactful, how we develop mechanisms for digital inclusion in our various community and in the various programs we do. We should also be having a mind as to how we're going to get across to more persons and see that more persons who qualify for the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program, try to register and get involved with it, know about the program and try to take advantage of the program, because this is still another way that we are working towards closing the digital divide and getting internet access to every household across the state. Also think around, we also start considering the way we interact with specific populations in the state. This time around, we'll also be mirroring the activities in some communities that have in some communities with immigrant population, right? Particularly in that regard, we'll be looking at the foreign-born population in those communities, and that is what we're going to refer to as immigrant population. So generally, I just mentioned about the Broadband Ready. Some of us might have heard about the Broadband Ready. So Broadband Ready, the full meaning of Broadband Ready is Broadband Regional Engagement for Adoption and Digital Equity. So this is a program that is being run by the Illinois Office of Broadband and Broadband Lab. So what this program has done is to also continue with the pattern of, also continue with the structure of the states being divided in 10 economic regions and have team leads in those states managing and trying to strategize on how to close the digital divide generally. So they are doing several initiatives and trying to see how broadband, the extent to which that area have been served in terms of broadband access and digital inclusion, and to work around means to which we can even close the digital divide more in that area. So if you would like to get involved with the Broadband Ready program, or you want to reach out to the Broadband Ready team in your region, you could also always send an email to Illinois Broadband Lab at illinois.edu, and someone will get across to you with a contact on who you talk to in that region. So the map here really shows how these regions have been divided. When you look there, you see when you look at the map, try to locate your county and you know the region which it falls under. Here you see the regions. In this table, you see the regions and the lead institutions. So this have a kind of structure where every region is being led by the lead is coming from a particular institution, a particular organization. So this organization is leading the efforts there. And the lead is not the only team member. The regions have built a team. The institution is just leading, right? So as much as possible, if you want to get involved, you could always send an email. So for the Northern region, you have the Region 1 Planning Council. The Northwest, we have the Northern Illinois University, Northeast, Chicago State University, and down that road up to the 10th region, which is the Southern Illinois University. So also looking at the map, I think this might be a bit brighter. The map here might be a bit brighter. So you could always locate your region and locate your region through your county. When you locate your county, you know the region where it falls under. You can also know the institution who is leading. And to get the contact of the broadband ready team lead, the point person or the contact person for that region, you could always send an email to Illinois Broadband Lab and we'll definitely be in touch. And at this point, I would want to hand it over to Alicia to continue with us on the digital equity and inclusion efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. So digital equity and inclusion, that is a term that we have been using not just locally within our state, but nationally. And as Charles referenced and mentioned, broadband is a basic need. It is a need that has come to the forefront since the COVID pandemic in 2020. And as a result, that is why we're here. That is why the extension program is talking more about digital equity and inclusion, although we know that the University of Illinois has been involved in internet access and broadband for many years and has been one of the leading institutions in those efforts. But with the Illinois Broadband Lab, what we have been doing is holding with the facilitation of Dr. Adrian Pickett, the Digital Equity Coalition calls. And the Digital Equity Coalition calls are for community organizations and partners. Some of you may have been a part of it at some point over the past year in particular. As well as when we talk about digital equity and inclusion, it's getting involved in these calls. And as Charles mentioned, getting involved with the Ready Regional Network, which again, I know some of you may be involved and or have more interest, hopefully, after this presentation. Staying informed and inclusive team building allows for better broadband infrastructure and planning. So again, it is a basic need. And what that is, as Charles explained, the Maslow hierarchy of needs, it is something that we live, we breathe, and we do in every area of our lives, whether it is in the urban communities, the suburban communities, or the rural communities and rural farming communities in particular. Thank you. And so what is still needed is we have now, I remember when I was involved with digital equity and inclusion, helping to close the digital divide. I was a practitioner working at that time in the education system in the Chicago schools as a consultant and on various capacities. But I also had the experience to travel abroad working with a community telecenter. So at that time, we had community telecenters here in the States as well as abroad. There were internet cafes. It is the same concept as community technology centers. We are still in need of having a community technology center that meets the needs of digital digital equity, digital skills that meets the needs of just having access to use computers at libraries, at schools, at the organizations such as the YMCA, the YWCA, some areas of Boys and Girls Clubs, and other community centers, even churches, where we can, people in those communities, residents, can have access to computers, not just students or youth, but adults on basic needs of learning how to use Microsoft Office, Word, learning how to format, do resume writing, online job applications, and then just virtual communications, whether they actually have to have an interview and using a computer for Zoom and WebEx. And then there is digital equity also involves cybersecurity and telehealth. So we know that I believe, University of Illinois system has started one of the first telehealth programs at UIC. And we know that telehealth is so important. We learned that in particular during the pandemic. People had the opportunity to meet some of their needs when they had access to talk with their doctors about some of the health issues that they were experiencing and or some of the continued health issues prior to COVID. And now many of those hospitals and those medical centers, you can go online and look at your chart. But if you do not have access to broadband, you're not able to do that. Or maybe you would have to go to a telecenter or a CTC or some other public location to gain access. So other considerations are team exercises includes identifying the state and federal grants to meet infrastructure needs early in order to also use funding goals to guide the engagement process. So funding is a part of engagement. And that is something that we want to continuously emphasize in this field of digital equity and conclusion in order to help us to close that digital divide that we've been dealing with for some time now. Thank you, Charles. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for taking us through lots of the digital inclusion programs and efforts. I would continue from the ACP program. Some of us might have heard about the ACP program or even worked on the ACP program. Generally, this is a program being run by the FCC, and it's known as the Affordable Connectivity Program. What this program does is low-income households, eligible low-income households get discounts on internet subscriptions and some other discounts on the purchase of some computer devices like laptop, tablet, or desktop computer. So to be eligible for this program, generally, the household income of that particular household should be below 200% of the federal poverty line, or if anyone in the household is currently receiving government benefits such as the SNAP, the Medicaid, the SSI, the Social Security benefit, the WIC Pell Grants, or even free and reduced price lunch. So also to be more specific, such eligible household will receive up to 30% monthly discount on internet service, or up to 75% monthly discount if the household is on qualifying tribal land. So after receiving this discount, sometimes at the end of the day, they might have nothing to pay again on internet access, or they might just have a little like $10 or some other amounts to pay after receiving this discount. It all depends on your location and your ISP and how much internet generally costs for the place where you stay. So they could also receive a one-time discount of up to $100 for laptop, tablet, or desktop computer, where they will have to also make payments. If they have to also make payments for that particular device, payment of within $10 and $50. So if you're also interested in doing the ACP outreach, because currently a lot, you see, we'll have to show some data. You see that a lot has to be done in getting people to sign up for the ACP. And if you're interested in doing ACP outreach, reaching out to community, reaching out to persons to make sure they sign and take advantage of the ACP, you could always reach out to the Broadband Lab for resources and assistance with the ACP outreach. So here you get some links. When you receive this slide, you could always access some of these links, some links that could take you through the ACP. The first link here is the ACP Consumer Outreach Toolkit. The ACP already, the FCC already, on their website already have some materials that you could use if you want to do outreach. The second link is for you to see the full picture of who qualifies for the ACP. And the other link you see is a write-up from Benton Institute, even giving you a better understanding of the ACP. And this is, the fourth one is a tool by Benton. I would have to do a bit of demonstration on the tool. It's a tool by Benton that shows ACP efforts so far in the state. It's, sorry, I would have to. So let me share my screen. So please, Alicia, confirm if you see my screen, the browser screen, right?
Yes.
Good.
So the last link is what I'm showing right now, is the Benton tool that shows data of ACP enrollment across by zip codes. So I would demonstrate by using 61801. And when you look at this, you hit enter, it shows, if you scroll down, it shows you the zip code. This is the area, this area is in Urbana, and it shows you a lot of data. It shows that the performance category here is the lowest, and the way this performance category is determined is by this this is the framework which you determine the performance category. So where you see the lowest, it shows that it's less than minus 40% of the expected enrollment. So, but if it's the highest performance, you see that it's 40% better than the expected enrollment, right? So there's high performance between 10 to 40% better than expected. So these are just, these are the, this is basically what determines if it's lowest performance or if it's highest performance based on these two. So for this 61801, which is a location in Urbana, it's the lowest performance category. So here it even shows you further data on not just the ACP, but general enrollment and general availability of internet in the area. So the total household is, this is the data on the total household, 10,938 in this place. And the eligible households for it, that the households that are eligible for ACP in this zip code is 8,610. So this is what determines if it's the lowest performance, because the predicted ACP enrollment is supposed to be 1,887, but the actual ACP enrollment is 905. So you see that is the lowest, it's far below what is ordinarily predicted. So this is the percentage of households with wireline broadband, 73%, and household with cellular data is 5%. So household without a computer in this zip code is 6%, and households with annual income under $15,000 is 28%. So we have 71% of household that are rent burdened, and about 65 plus about 9% of the population they are senior citizens, which are persons above 65 years, and they have about 26% foreign-born population. 26% of persons in this zip code are immigrants. So if you're working in this area, you also take note of that. You have about 26% of persons in this zip code that are immigrants, so that when you're doing some programs in this area, you also take note of how the outreach goes. Sorry, let me return back to the slide. So that is the Benton tool, and you could always click on the link and check for your zip code and see. You could always click on the link and check on your zip code and see how that works for you. So this also takes us back to the general data on ACP enrollment in Illinois. So also we are back to the we are back to the economic regions. We are back to the 10 economic regions pattern. And you see the data here, generally the essence of this data is for us to have an understanding and have a view as to the extent and the work that needs to be done in area of ACP enrollment. So generally in all of Illinois, this is the total number. We have about 5 million households in Illinois, and over 1.7 million persons household eligible for the ACP program. So which means we are far below in ACP enrollment in Illinois. And at the end of the day, we have 482,610 ACP enrollment in Illinois, which is far below the number of persons expected to be eligible for the ACP program. So, and the only percentage of persons who have been enrolled into the ACP in Illinois is just 28%. So you see that a lot of work needs to be done. And in all these data, you realize that the least region in ACP enrollment is the West Central region. Why Southwest is topping the charts with 53%, and the West Central is at the bottom of the charts by 18%. So when doing your ACP work, always look at your region. You have sufficient data there to see the extent of work that needs to be done and areas that have been covered and what you need to do next. So generally in this area, in a lot of this location, everyone understand that in Illinois, we have large immigrant population, right? These are special categories of persons. And in the next slide, would see some data on the immigrant population, some digital equity data on the immigrant population. And we've arranged this by the top 24 highest, communities with top 24 highest number and percentage of immigrants in the state. This is generally by community this time around, though not exactly by counties. So we've measured this data by the foreign-born population. So we determine population households that are immigrant by being foreign-born, right? And when working with immigrant population, you have to take note of the language barrier a lot. And this will take you back to making sure that if you're doing an outreach with immigrant population, it may be important for you to consider trusted community partners, persons that or organizations that the immigrants in that location organizations that you think that you understand that the immigrants, you try to look for organizations that the immigrants in that location really trust, and organizations that have worked with them in a trusted form before. And sometimes you could realize that when you reach out to those organizations and you collaborate with those organizations, you realize that they could also help you work around the language barrier, and you have a better outreach with those immigrants, but with the immigrant population. So the data here, okay, the data here will shows the percentage of the numbers on households without computer and households without internet in the immigrant population. So we've arranged this data from the top 24 households. There are lots and lots of other communities that have immigrant population, right? But when you look at this data, when you look at this display, you realize that majority of the areas are in the northeast region of the state, right? A lot of them are within Cook County, Lake County, majority of the top 24, right? So when we look at this, you look at the data. This column is the total, sorry. The fourth column is the total household in the locations in this particular communities. The next column shows the number of households without a computer and the percentage compared to the general immigrant population. Please, we should know that this is not the total household in that particular community. This is just the total household with the total immigrant household, like the total foreign-born household in those particular locations. And that is why you see that the numbers are high, right? And it's important to take note of this when doing outreach, because if you don't take note of it, then you might not, closing the digital divide might still be, when we may be able to close the digital divide might still be far away, because you have to look at the peculiarities of these persons in the community and see how best to reach out to them, so that while we are closing the digital divide, we ensure that we really close them very well, because they're actually taken into account in looking at the population of persons and households in the United States and in Illinois generally. So the last column talks about the number of the household and the percentage of household without internet subscription, immigrant households specifically. So this data is also among the top 24. So this next slide, we already took note of the fact that we have among the top 24, we have a lot of them from the Northeast region and from Cook County, Lake County. So we went to pick random communities that is on the top 200 communities that have immigrant population, and this is it. There are other communities that have immigrant population. You may also want to reach out. This data is from the 2020 US Census, right? So it's publicly available. Though we had to work on this to get to particularly select out this data. The IBA have some of this data, and Extension also have some of them. So if you need some data on this, on particular locations, you may want to reach out. Or also the Benton tool there is also there to help you figure out some of this data, right? So we picked random locations to touch across several other locations in the state, including Champaign, Peoria, and Danville, and several other locations. So this really mirrors what the digital divide looks like in the immigrant communities. And I would hand it over at this point to Alicia. I think we have some questions. Maybe at the end, we may want to look at some of these questions and give a response to the ones who can, please. Alicia, please take it on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. Wow, such great information. Thank you. I want to first bring everyone's attention to the barcode that is on the screen. This barcode will actually give you access to the resources that you see listed here. And yes, I do see several questions regarding the ACP tool, as well as the ACP provider list. So there is the FCC government sites has ACP provider lists that you may go and see what is available and what they have there. And we have Robbie Macbeth, who can provide a little bit of information on the ACP tool that he and his team have worked on at Benton, at the Benton Institute.
Thank you, Alicia. Yes, if someone wants to put it, let me see if I can find it real fast in the chat. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback about this tool. Let me put it in the chat. That basically just allows you to put in any zip code that you're curious about ACP enrollment. And the idea is it's trying to answer the question, how are signups going? So they use kind of a bunch of different data to determine not just eligibility, but what's kind of expected performance in that area, and whether or not the zip code is outperforming or underperforming, or sorry, overperforming or underperforming what might be expected in that area, and kind of color coding. So it really gives you a more granular sense of how outreach and other aspects are going. There's also a series of blogs about it that I'll share some of them that go into detail about some of the methodology of measuring some of that expected performance, kind of what they mean by that, as well as just other applications and uses of the tool.
Thank you so much, Robbie, for sharing, and thank you for adding the website in the chat for everyone to see. Thank you. Okay, and so we are at the conclusion of our presentation, the conclusion of this webinar. So some of the takeaways that we have is outreach and engagement. Please stay involved. You can sign up with the for the Illinois Broadband Connections newsletter. You can contact the Illinois Broadband Lab. And you can attend the webinars that both the Illinois Office of Broadband has, the Illinois Extension, as well as the Illinois Broadband Lab. You can find that on the Illinois Extension website, as well as the Illinois Broadband Lab website. And you will also be able to see some of the other things that Illinois Broadband has been doing throughout the state that I know some of you have been involved with and are aware, and that includes our listening sessions. We're coming to a conclusion on those for this phase of things next week. But you'll be able to see some of the areas that we have visited and a couple of the areas that we're going to visit next week. So closing the digital divide. Remember, digital equity inclusion as part of an effective broadband development process. And when we talk about digital equity and inclusion, we mean everyone. We mean economically, and that is those who are underserved, who are unserved, and then in pockets where it is listed as being served. So that is something that we want to keep mindful of. And then also work with IBL, work with the Illinois Broadband Lab for ACP outreach. That is something that, as Charles mentioned and discussed, as well as Robbie referenced with the ACP Benton tool. This is an initiative, a federal initiative, and we are working on ACP enrollment with the IBL team. And work with foreign-born or marginalized communities. Use the data and work with a counterpart, understanding that it is all-inclusive. Immigrants, our community, we are a safe nation, a safe state. Trying to remember the proper term at this time, but we have a large group of immigrants in our state throughout various different communities, both in the cities as well as in the rural communities. So please stay engaged and continue to let us know at Illinois Broadband Lab, Illinois Extension, about how we can work together for crossing the digital equity and inclusion and closing the digital divide. So thank you from Charles and myself. It has been a pleasure to be a part of the Illinois Extension. It has been a pleasure to have Nancy as our mentor with the Illinois Extension. We appreciate having Matt Schmidt, the Director of Office of Illinois Broadband, of the Office of Broadband, to welcome us. And then our now team members, Robbie Macbeth, Shabika Argwal, and Dr. Adrian Pickett and others, as well as the University of Illinois Extension mentors and leaders, Jeanette Tamayo and Kyle Harst. So thank you very much. And we would not be here if it wasn't for Dr. Evangeline Pianfetti. So thank you for seeing that we could be a part of this team. It is something that is a continuous work, continuous engagement for us. So we appreciate you as well. And thank you all for coming and being here. And Charles, if you have any remarks, I'll pass this back to you.
Thank you so much. If you have further questions that you think that may be necessary to answer, you might want to send an email to Illinois Broadband Lab at illinois.edu. That's the perfect place to get tons and tons of questions answered concerning the ACP, the outreaches, the closing the digital divide, lots of stuff. But if it's related to grants, you might want to send it to broadband@illinois.gov. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much, Nancy, for your mentorship over this year, and our chiefs and colleagues in IBL, Robbie, Dr. Adrian, Shubika Agawa. They were previous scholars before we came, and they've really been helpful, very helpful in our stay for the past 1 year. Their mentorship has really been wonderful. And thank you so much, Evangeline, you're just awesome. You're just the one that always comes through for us. So thank you everyone for being with us today. Thank you for joining us today. And I hope that when doing our work with the communities, we always consider broadband and we always consider the need to close the digital divide across the state and consider the way we work across different population of persons in the state, even while looking at the data and seeing and looking for profitable collaborations and partnership. Thank you so much. And Nancy, please, I would hand it over to you, please.
Thank you so much, both of you, for the presentation. A lot of really good aspects of county and community engagement were highlighted here today. And I think, you know, amidst all of the information that we're always putting out there about the different organizations and their initiatives and the different grant opportunities, and all of the aspects of broadband development that counties and communities have to get done, that what you've highlighted here today is really truly important. And we just thank you so much for taking the time to put all the information together and to, you know, craft a message that really is one that is not just valuable, but also a source of encouragement for everybody. So we do have some questions in there, and I'll just reiterate to everybody that if you have any question, to put that in the chat to me, that you can also use that direct message option, because I know sometimes folks have questions and they really don't want to put themselves out there, but they want to ask the question. And using that direct message option on these webinars is very normal and lets you submit questions anonymously, without putting yourself on the spot. So please do that. And I've actually have a few of those that I've queued up. So let's get into some questions. And actually, before I get into the questions, let me take a moment and say that the Illini Science Policy Scholars Program is managed by Evangeline Pianfetti, who is another individual who is in Illinois Extension leadership. She is on the call today. And Evangeline, if you want to greet everybody in the chat and maybe include any information you wish to include about this fellowship program, maybe your contact information. It is a great program that works with many different organizational hosts. And I believe there's a website as well. And so we definitely want to make sure that that information is put out there so people know how this sort of all got started, right? And so some early questions that we received during the presentation involved questions about the ACP program. One county says that I see that the populations that qualify for the Affordable Connectivity Program are between 20 and 50%. I see populations that qualify and are enrolled currently for the Affordable Connectivity Program are only between 20 and 50%. Do we know any more about about the populations and who still do not have access or affordable access? So I think what they're trying to say is, for those who are eligible but haven't enrolled, it looks like it's anywhere between 50% and 80% in any one county. And so either they don't have access at all, meaning the infrastructure is not there, or they don't have access to existing infrastructure and it's because of affordability reasons, and maybe even because of needing a laptop or something as well. So do you have any information about who those folks are? And I think that it's a question that kind of speaks to outreach. Like, we don't necessarily know who to contact or who to make outreach to. Do you have any more ideas on who that might be? And so just any ideas that come to mind on that.
So I think I may want to make a comment on that. The data on the ACP is a general data, right? Based on the total population and maybe based on the income of persons generally. It might have been gotten from general income of persons and persons who are participating in the Medicaid and every other program that the government sees as something that qualifies you for ACP. So this affects the entire population, but the interesting thing is that you don't know who are the exact persons. The only thing I see there is you could do some general outreaches and maybe ask questions, maybe in the course of sign up. Some organizations have been doing some outreach on that. Pieces for People, different organizations, they've been doing outreaches in that regard. Why some ISPs are also asking some of those questions while trying to sign you up, and they sign you up if you fall within that category, if you have anything to show that you fall within the ACP category. So I think these are something that we try to relate with the community and ask you, oh, did you fall into this category? Do you use Medicaid? Do you take Social Security benefits? Are you within the this? Just look at the whole the whole eligibility requirements. If you fall within any of the eligibility requirements, or if any member of that household falls within the eligibility requirements, then they are ACP eligible. But as to knowing the specific households and knowing their name, I'm not sure that data will be available. I think that might even affect people's privacy. I think that might affect people's privacy if you have to show their data out there and say, oh, this is the families that are below that have below 200% of the national poverty rate or whatever. So particularly, that is my view on that. I don't know if anyone has, if any
Yeah,
of the
well,
IBL coordinators have a view on that.
mhm. Well, it's interesting when you showed one of our counties or one of our metropolitan areas, you highlighted the fact that almost a third had incomes below 15,000, for example. And so even if it was like a one or a 3-person household or a 2-person household, that sounds like they would qualify for ACP. So I almost wonder, since those who are eligible but still unenrolled are between 50 and 80% anywhere in any county, like I wonder if just campaigning widely is not a piece of advice you all might have at this time, to just do general population types of promotions for ACP. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to comment and then I'm going to actually maybe pass it over to Robbie for more specifics. I know when we have been doing the listening sessions, one of the things that, and thank you so much, Charles and Nancy, one of the things that we've been doing is handing out talking about ACP, referencing it, but also giving handouts to both local government attendees as well as residents who are attending the listening sessions and leaving those forms there. But and that, well, not but and the reason why, because we know that enrollment, actually information and education is still needed. And so that is something that we all can do. Those of us who are in the position to help to educate, to provide resources, and also identifying digital navigators, if you will, which is something that I know that IBL is working on in that regards in the near future. And I know that Robbie can speak more about some of those efforts as IBL coordinator and some of the things that have been happening. But my response overall is yes, it is a continued need for education, not just for those who are in need, but those who are willing and wanting to provide information on what that need is.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of just point to I completely agree, Alicia, with what you said. Just pointing to a couple kind of findings, at least in some of the initial research that's out there on these sorts of things. So one that I'm going to post here saying that half of ACP eligible households are still unaware of the program. So that's the biggest component when we're talking about the difficulties of the program, and everything else is just reaching into the populations to make them aware. And that can be for a variety of reasons, but also thinking about how to use communication channels that work best with the populations you're trying to reach. As for the specific makeup of certain populations driving, I'm gonna kind of repost this article just around factors that play an issue. So the income thing obviously is the biggest component when we're talking about this, identifying kind of high eligible areas, because it primarily is a cost assisted program. But the researchers here kind of point out that factors working against ACP enrollment would be areas where housing costs are high, captured by the share of households that are rent burdened, share of unoccupied homes, places with many immigrants, captured by the share of foreign-born residents. And then age is also a big issue. So places with higher proportions of older adults have lower ACP enrollment rates as well. So there's kind of a lot of factors that drive those enrollment rate factors based on different demographics. I hope that's helpful and adds to the conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to get all of your responses on that. And yeah, there's a lot of questions, I think, pertaining to how to go about this, and some really good ideas as well. Another question about ACP that was sent to me. Thank you for showing how to find out information on any county's current situation with ACP enrolled populations. What do you think are the first steps in figuring out what to do about the information counties can discover about their population eligibility and those not accessing affordable internet? So it's a similar question from before, but I think this one more speaks to how do you get started? Like, what is that very first or first few steps? Charles or Alicia, you want to?
Okay. So for me, I think that when you have some of this information, yes, you do not know the household specifics, right? But you know some programs that you're doing that have, or you know some gatherings where you have more of persons, low-income households attending. So those are the locations, those are the chances of the place, those are the places where you have high chances of getting this class of persons, right? Where you have high chance of getting these categories of persons. You could get these categories of persons anywhere, right? But when you look at your communities, you look at, oh, the likelihood of that. And just as Elisa said, it's more about education. It's more about education, really. You don't know, you can't walk into people's house and say, oh, are you this? It's more about education, and people will take advantage of it. And maybe particularly collaboration. If you know local ISPs that could do that, you could also see people that you could collaborate with, or some gatherings where you think that you could see persons like give some handouts, some flyers, and talk about it. Importantly, talk about it. When we talk about it, people will take advantage of it. This money is there, this money is there, this opportunity is there for people to get access to internet. So that is what I think we should particularly do about it. You know those locations, and you know programs that are set in those areas that you could also leverage on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then, of course, I know you've mentioned this several times, but sending an email to broadband@uillinois.edu is another way to get started, because, of course, those at the Illinois Broadband Lab do have the information and the data. And then as well, I think that they're really looking to partner with the regions and localities on their ACP outreach. Would you agree? Would everyone agree? The two presenters and the staff online, would they agree? I'm seeing some nods there. And then we have
we're also
ahead.
trying to do a consistent ACP outreach call. So you can email the Illinois Broadband Lab at uillinois.edu. I'll put it in the chat. If you're interested in the monthly ACP outreach call, which
Sure.
is really just about kind of collaborating and hearing from best practices across the state of what people are doing.
Yes, that's a really good point, and I will include that in the follow-up as well, that's another call that folks can get on and be invited to, aside from the Digital Equity Coalition, as well as the READY calls, the regional calls, those ACP outreach calls as well. All of that able to join if you email the Illinois Broadband Lab. And then there's actually a question that was sent that is that was sent to me direct message, but also here in the chat about if the ACP outreach materials are in other languages. So didn't know who wanted to kind of attack that one. Alicia or Charles?
I've not really looked into that, but there should be Spanish. We know that there's Spanish version, but I do not know about other languages. If we have other languages, but it's maybe something we might have to look into again and give you further response on. But right now I'm not certain, but I know that there is Spanish version of it, apart from the English version of the ACP outreach materials.
Sure. And I think it's on that toolkit page. It looks like
Lisa, you have
that
something to say?
consumer toolkit has additional languages in Chinese, French, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, Creole, Tagalog, and Vietnamese. I don't know. I'll just copy paste where the link is that's found. But thanks. That's a great question that folks are having. I think that covers some populations in Illinois. I think it's a good start. It's a short list of languages, but it's a good start. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. I think Alicia is sharing her screen and showing where on that toolkit page you can see the.
Yeah.
So I believe if you click on the language,
Right.
you probably might see then a similar page to this with the like different aspects,
Yeah.
right? The newsletter.
Yes. And I want to add, and thank you so much, Nancy, for bringing that up and sharing that tool. And I want to add that when we've actually have listening sessions as well, in-person listening sessions, as well as virtual listening sessions that have been in Spanish thus far. And those have been very effective, where we're sharing information about ACP, where we're talking about ACP and other things related to IBL, so that we can reach that population. But yes, here, as we see, the fact sheet has other languages that are included in our in the country and in our state as well.
Thank you. There's a great question about the laptop discount portion of ACP. The question says, for the ACP one-time laptop discount, does this work with the PCs for People program? So I think you all are aware there's a great program in Illinois that counties and communities can partner with called the PCs for People program that work with refurbished laptops. I am thinking that sometimes those are free distributions and other times there might be some other type of initiative going on, but wondering if you have information on the providers for the laptop discount or if that information is found on the ACP web pages. Again, that was a great question and happy to also include that link to PCs for People. I think that's a really good addition. Thank you for putting that question in there because that would be a great link to include in the resource links for the follow-up as well. A little bit of a tangent, but the PCs for People is just a whole nother way that you can do, I think, those technology drives, those tech drives. Alicia was talking about establishing those centers, but also tech drives. And so we will include a link to PCs for People as well. So either of you want to comment on the one-time laptop discount and who are providers for that possibly?
Rob, you want to take that? Or Lisa, you want to take that? Particularly for the one-time laptop program, I'm not certain who are the providers, but I think it's something, because I know PCs for People actually sign people up for ACP, right? And they also do laptop distribution, but I do not know the model they use, because a lot of time, either sometimes they distribute for free, while sometimes it's particularly reduced, but there's a condition as to how much the laptop should cost and the amount you have to contribute to it, right? You have to contribute within $10 to $50 or something, right? It's not going to be completely paid off for you. You have to contribute some little token to the purchase of the laptop or the tablet. But I know PCs for People is doing some ACP programs for both signing up on the internet, but I've not really asked as to how they work around the issues of laptops. So it may be something that we may get back to you on.
Sure. And of course, a quick search reveals that I think a wide variety of providers can do that. So I'm wondering if it's one of those things where you have the discount and then they are supposed to get the rebate after the fact. We see that happen in some of the other types of programs. So again, I can't say for sure, but I think that might be the case. And of course, we can certainly, get back to that and address that in the follow-up. Another question. When applying for funding, would the organization need to be registered under the GATA portal? Oh, we got a grant question there, but I do believe that GATA portal is pretty key for the state and federal grants, though I am not from the Illinois Office of Broadband or another state or federal entity, so I can't say that for sure. I'll move on. And got another great question about ACP. Are we aware of the percentage of ACP eligibles who are foreign-born individuals?
No, but you could potentially do some overlap based on census data in certain communities. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like you can have a layer of ACP eligible households and you could lay a layer on top of that of foreign-born based on census data.
Another question was sent to me about if we want to do ACP outreach is there funding that is available for flyers, ink, paper, postage, and other materials that would be used to get out the word in our counties and communities? So are you aware of any funding available for that in Illinois?
That funding has already occurred, at least like some of that grant, but I think there was recently an announcement about more funding being available. And I will link to the FCC announcement about that, which was actually today, I think.
So perfectly timed question. So thank you,
Yes.
Robbie, if you can put that chat in there.
Yeah.
So,
Put that in the chat.
so also, Nancy, just to point out about the question for the ways to assess the discounts for the discount for affording the devices, right? The ACP discount for devices, right? So there's a link that is on the chat box. If you follow through the link, you get to this page where you enter a zip code or a location. Then you find companies near you that do that are eligible for ACP. So I don't know if everyone is seeing my screen. You see companies near me, find a company, you enter a zip code, you click on ACP. you click on search, you select ACP, click on search, and then you scroll down. You see the types of service for this location we have chosen. You see that this is a list of the companies here. So some of them these ones are mobile internet, $0 with ACP, discounted devices. So this also offers discounted device, right? So when you follow through this, they have the contacts of these companies all on this chart. So as much as possible, if you need to work on this, you may want to use this tool to know the companies that offer ACP services in your location. So I think I'll drop this specific link too on the chart.
That would be great. Thank you. And so we are out of questions. Just want to give our presenters any other opportunity to make a comment and of course sign off, and want to just say thank you very much. We are, of course, went past the hour, which is very typical for our webinars that we do. And so thanks to all who kind of stayed on to hang out with us and listen to the answer portion of the webinar today. Thank you again to the presenters. Thanks for all you've done this past year in getting in the mix with all of us and helping so much those state efforts. Really appreciate it and hope all have a great weekend, and go ahead and say any other comments and your au revoirs when you're done. So thanks.
Great job, everyone. This was wonderful. Excellent
Thank you.
information. All right. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This was excellent.
Thank you,
so much.
Evangeline. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.